The colony ship Meridian's Hope had been Jackson's home for 3 years now, ever since Earth's governments decided that humanity's survival meant scattering across the stars like seeds in the wind. He'd adapted well enough, better than most, the colony administrators said. But then again, most colonists didn't have a 7-year-old daughter who treated every alien species like a potential playmate. Lillian had that gift, that peculiar human ability to see past scales, tentacles, and compound eyes straight to the person underneath. The Zelathi were the colony's administrators, a species of towering insectoids whose chitinous bodies gleamed like polished obsidian under the station's harsh lights. They were efficient, logical, and, according to every psychological profile the human liaisons had compiled, completely incapable of humor, art, or what humans called small talk. Commander Thex was the district overseer, responsible for 14 human family units, including Jackson's. In the 3 years since arrival, their interactions had been purely professional. Resource allocations, work assignments, quarterly reviews. Thex would arrive at Jackson's door with data pads and requisition forms, mandibles clicking in what the translation software rendered as efficient bureaucratic speech. But something had changed 6 months ago. It started subtly. Thixis began arriving during Lillian's waking hours rather than during her school sessions. The commander would pause when Lillian bounded to the door, her gap-toothed smile bright enough to power a solar array. She'd wave enthusiastically at the towering alien, completely unafraid, chattering about her day in that breathless way children had. At first, Thex seemed frozen by this behavior. The Zelathi didn't have children. They hatched fully formed from communal breeding pools, already possessing basic knowledge and motor functions. The concept of a small, helpless creature that required years of nurturing was academically understood but emotionally foreign. Yet Lillian persisted. She drew pictures of Thecas with crayons, making the commander's carapace shine with impossible rainbow hues. She asked questions. Do you have a favorite color? Do you like music? What's your favorite food? Questions that the translation software seemed to struggle with, as if the Zelathi language lacked the frameworks for such inquiries. Jackson watched this unlikely friendship develop with quiet amusement. He'd learned long ago not to underestimate his daughter's ability to forge connections. Back on Earth, she'd befriended the grumpy superintendent of their apartment building, a man who'd gone 40 years without smiling until Lillian decided he needed to see her butterfly collection. The visits from Thexas grew longer, more frequent. The commander would complete the official business quickly, then linger. Sometimes Thecas would tilt their head at Lillian's artwork displayed on the wall. Sometimes those multifaceted eyes would track the girl as she played with her toys, chitinous plates shifting in what might have been curiosity or confusion or something entirely alien. Then came the evening that changed everything. Jackson was preparing dinner, synthetic protein again, flavored to approximate chicken, when the door chimed. Lillian was already asleep, exhausted from a field trip to the colony's hydroponics bay. He expected a neighbor, perhaps a maintenance notification. Instead, Thex stood in the corridor. The commander was alone, without the usual entourage of assistants and security. The harsh corridor lights cast strange shadows across the alien's angular form. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Commander," Jackson said finally, "it's late. Is there an emergency?" Thex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound the software couldn't quite translate. The alien shifted weight from one leg to another, a gesture Jackson had never seen before. It almost looked like nervousness. "I require," Thex began, then stopped, started again. "Human Jackson, I have observed your species for 3 solar cycles. I have read your literature, studied your psychology, attempted to understand your cultural frameworks." Jackson waited, recognizing the careful formality that marked important conversations across species lines. "There is a question," Thex continued, voice dropping to barely above a whisper, another unprecedented behavior. "A concern that has occupied my processing cycles with increasing frequency." The commander's enormous form seemed to fold inward slightly, becoming smaller, more vulnerable. When Thex spoke again, the translation software rendered the words in a hesitant, almost frightened tone Jackson had never heard from any Zelathi. "Am I pretty?" The question hung in the recycled air between them. Jackson felt his heart constrict with sudden understanding. This being, this logical, efficient administrator who commanded thousands, was asking for something profoundly simple and profoundly human: validation, acceptance, the reassurance that they were more than just their function. Lillian's influence, Jackson realized. His daughter had somehow taught this alien to want to be liked, to care about being seen as an individual rather than just a role. He could have explained that pretty was a complex aesthetic concept, that beauty standards were culturally relative, that Zelathi morphology wasn't designed to trigger human aesthetic responses. He could have given a diplomatic non-answer, the kind that respected cultural differences while maintaining professional distance. Instead, Jackson smiled, the same warm, uncomplicated smile Lillian had inherited from him. "I like you, Thekis," he said simply. The commander's entire body went still. Those multifaceted eyes reflected the corridor lights in kaleidoscopic patterns. The mandibles stopped their constant motion. "You like me?" The translation software struggled with the nuance, rendering uncertainty and something that might have been hope. "Yeah," Jackson said. "You're patient with my daughter. You bring her those crystalline samples from the geology surveys because you notice she collects interesting rocks. You adjust your schedule to visit when she's awake because you know it makes her happy. That's not just being pretty, Thex. That's being a good person." The word person seemed to hit the alien like a physical force. Thex stepped backward, mandibles opening and closing soundlessly. "I am a person?" The question was barely audible. "Of course you are," Jackson said. "The best kind. The kind who learns to care." For a moment, Jackson thought he'd somehow offended the commander. Thekis turned away, those powerful legs carrying the alien several steps down the corridor. But then the commander paused, looked back, and the translation software captured something it had never rendered before from Zelathi speech: laughter. "Your species is dangerous," Thex said, but the words carried warmth instead of warning. "You make us want to be more than we were designed to be." Jackson grinned. "Yeah, we're terrible that way." Thex departed then, but the visits continued. And now when the commander arrived, there was something new in those alien eyes, something warm and grateful and achingly familiar. Humanity's greatest weapon, Jackson thought as he returned to his synthetic dinner, was never our technology or our adaptability. It was our stubborn insistence that everyone deserved to be seen, to be liked, to matter. Even the monsters were just people who'd never been asked the right questions.